E1 Chapter 3 Regulation of Gas Content in Blood. In this video clip, we are going to learn first the initiation of heartbeat, that is the generation of heartbeat. Second, the cardiac cycle. In the last video clip, we already finished learning about the control of breathing. In this video clip, we will start learning about the control of heartbeat. Both are important processes affecting the gas content in blood. Now, let's first revise the structure of the heart and the blood flow within the heart. Blood in the vena cava, flows to the heart and reach the right atrium first. Then the blood will flow down to the right ventricle. And then, due to the contraction of the right ventricle, the blood will flow out through the pulmonary artery here. Then the blood will reach the lungs. After passing through the lungs, it will come back to the heart through the pulmonary vein, reach the left atrium, and then flows down to the left ventricle. Septum is the central partition separating the left and the right side of the heart. Finally, the blood will be pumped by the left atrium to the aorta coming out of the heart. So this is a quick revision of the heart structure and the blood flow within the heart. Now, the heart is mainly made up of cardiac muscles. Cardiac muscles, it refers to the heart muscles. Now, the heart has a special property because it can contract by itself without nervous stimulation. So even if you cut away all the nerves connecting to the heart will also continue to beat by itself. And this property is called myogenic property. But this term is not required in our syllabus, so your textbook does not give you this term. It refers to the generation of heartbeat by the cardiac muscle itself. Myo means muscle. Genic means generation of the heartbeat. Now let's look at the initiation or the generation of the heartbeat in more details. The first part refers to a special part of the heart. It is near the right atrium. We call it the sinoatrial node, or in short, you can just call it SA node. Another name for it is called pacemaker, because it determines the pace of heartbeat. It is made up of a group of specialized cardiac muscle cells. How special? Why they are special? Because they can generate electrical impulses automatically or regularly. They can generate the electrical impulses by themselves. And then the electrical impulse will spread through the two atria quickly and causing them to contract at the same time. Now, at the same time is an important element. So please remember, the two atria can contract at the same time due to the same source of stimulation from the SA node. So this is the first part. The two atria contract first, and then the electrical impulse will travel to a special region. We call it atrioventricular node, in short, AV node. It is a region between the atria and the ventricles. And then the AV node will relay the electrical impulse from the SA node to the ventricles. So the electrical impulse spread through the ventricles quickly, causing both ventricles contract at the same time again. But this conduction of the electrical impulse through the AV node, through the AV node, will cause a short time delay. So the contraction of ventricles will be after the contraction of atria. Now this is important, because if the ventricles contract at the same time with the atria, the blood cannot flow smoothly from the atria to the ventricle. So the ventricle should contract after the contraction of atria, so that most of the blood will fill the ventricles before they contract. So we finished talking about the generation of the heartbeat. Now let's talk about cardiac cycle. What is the meaning of cardiac cycle? It refers to the sequence of events taking place in one heartbeat. And each cardiac cycle lasts for about 0.8 seconds. It consists of 3 stages, 1, 2, 3. Usually it is illustrated by a bar diagram. The upper part illustrates the events taking place in atria, while the lower parts refers to the events taking place in the ventricles. Now, the color here has represent two meaning. The green color represents the contraction condition, and the yellow color refers to the relaxation. So in the first part, here, atria contract at the same time, ventricles relax. So to help you to understand the bar diagram, it has different colors. Now let's look at the first stage. It is called the atriosystole. Systole means contraction. So atriosystole refers to atrial contraction. Electrical impulse spreads from the SA node to the two atria, causing them to contract at the same time. During this period, ventricles relax. This is the first stage. Atria contract and ventricles relax. Of course, it will cause the blood to flow from the atria, from the two atria down to the two ventricles. And of course, during this period, the bicuspid and tricuspid valves are open, and the semilunar valve at this time are closed. Second stage. It is called the ventricular systole. Ventricular systole. Remember, systole refers to contraction. So in this stage, the main characteristic is the contraction of the ventricles. At this time, the atria relax, and the ventricle, it should be C, contract. Of course, due to the electrical impulse stimulation, the ventricles will contract, causing the pressure to increase, so that the blood here will flow up to the two arteries and forcing the semilunar valve to open. And at this time, the tricuspid and bicuspid valve are closed by the pressure difference between the ventricle and the atria. And the closing of these two valves causes the first heart sound to be produced. Usually we will use the word lup to represent the first heart sound, lup. And the third stage is called the diastole. Diastole refers to relaxation. Both the atria and the ventricles will relax at this stage. And at this stage, the semilunar valves will be closed due to the pressure difference, because the pressure in the two arteries are now higher than that of the ventricles. causing the closing of the semilunar valve, and this caused the second heart sound. We describe it as dup. The first one lup, and this one dup. It is the second heart sound. Okay, so we've finished learning about the cardiac cycle, and during diastole, the pressure in the two atria will drop, okay, lower than that in the veins. So the blood from the veins will go back to the atria to repeat the cycle. Okay, now let's learn about the pressure changes in the heart during the cardiac cycle. We can learn it by this kind of graph. It has three curves showing the pressure changes in different parts. The green curve represents the pressure change in the left atrium, blue curve, left ventricle, and the red curve, aorta. We can observe many things from these curves. Okay, first, you can easily observe the great difference between the maximum pressure in the left ventricle and that of the left atrium. Okay, the first one is much higher than the second one. Of course, you understand because the left ventricle need a high pressure to pump the blood to every other body parts, while the left atrium just need to pump the blood, okay, down to the ventricle. And also, if you look at these 2 points, in this point, okay, at around 0.1 second, the ventricle pressure will exceed that of the atrium pressure. What will be the implication? That means the bicuspid valve, okay, we are looking at the left side only, so we just look at bicuspid valve, okay, the left side, will be closed, okay, when the pressure of the left ventricle is higher, getting higher than that of the left atrium, okay, it will cause the bicuspid valve to close. Okay, what about at this point? When the just opposite, okay, when the left ventricle pressure gets below the pressure of the left atrium, then the bicuspid valve will open due to the pressure difference. Okay. What about these 2 points? Okay, this is the first point, and then we have the next this point, but I need to do a correction first. I better change the color to blue. So this blue curve should remain higher than the red curve until at this point. Okay. Now remember, the blue curve represents the ventricle pressure, and the red curve represents the aorta. So here in this first point, when the pressure, ventricle pressure, is higher than the aorta pressure, that means the semilunar valve, okay, will open at this moment. Okay, when the ventricle pressure is higher than the aorta pressure, the blood will flow from the ventricle to the aorta. So the semilunar valve should open to allow the blood to flow from the ventricle to the aorta. What about at this point? Okay, at this point, the ventricle pressure just start to go below the aorta pressure. That means the aorta pressure becomes higher than the ventricle pressure at this point or after this point, and this will cause the closing of the semi-lunar valve. Okay, will close at this point. Okay, so in observing these curves, okay, in different point time spot, you can tell what happens to the valves, okay, or the action of the heart chambers, both the ventricles and the atria. And remember, actually, the closing and the opening of the valves depends on um, the pressure difference between the two sides of the valves. Okay. Actually, I think you can try to digest what we had mentioned about it by referring to the diagram in your textbook. Okay, try to study them carefully so that you can understand the graph. And finally, we will mention about a term we call cardiac output. It refers to the volume of blood pumped out of the heart per minute. So how much blood is being pumped out within 1 minute? Okay, the cardiac output can give you an idea about the heart activity. So how to calculate the cardiac output? It involves two parameters. First one is stroke volume, and then the second one will be the heart rate. Okay, stroke volume multiply the heart rate, then you will get the cardiac output. So what is the meaning of stroke volume? Stroke volume refers to the volume of blood pumped out of the heart or left ventricle in each heartbeat. Okay, so how much blood will be squeezed out for one heartbeat? Okay, the ventricle contraction. And the heart rate is simple, the number of heartbeats per minute. So these two parameters multiply with one another, then you will get the cardiac output, that is the total volume of blood pumped out of the heart in 1 minute. Okay, so we will continue to talk about cardiac output when we learn the control of cardiac output or the heartbeat in the coming video. Okay, to recap in this video clip, we have learned the generation of heartbeat and the events of the cardiac cycle. Okay, now you can continue to watch the other two more video clips. First about the initiation of heartbeat and the second one about cardiac cycle. These are good animation video clips. Okay, after that, please complete the MC assignment and homework assignment in the Google Classroom.